Here we are. I've been longing to sit here with you for many months. So happy
Hmm.
to have this conversation with you. I want to start by saying that so much of what I do is inspired by you, directly or indirectly. And knowing about your work and having learned how to integrate it really in my own life, it's still a really big part of my life, um, has been such a dramatic shift. So here I am, like putting you a little bit on the, putting some rose petals around you and some spotlight and some, but I'm just really, really happy that you want to talk with us today.
That makes me want to interview you. Like, tell me about this dramatic shift in your life.
I think we're gonna, I think it's gonna shine through in our
Okay.
conversation. Yeah. But do you want to introduce yourself to people that have no clue who you are? Like, what would you say today?
Oh, that is so hard at this point in my life because I'm 70 years old and I've gone through so many phases and cycles where I would every few years I feel like I would introduce myself in a very different way as a different person. So even the person that you met a few years back with the embodied intimacy world, that person has kind of like evolved and moved into different interest areas. It doesn't, it's, I love the thing of the spiral thing of it expands and includes the cycle before. So I still feel very connected and very alive with the world that we shared. And I'm curious how that continued to evolve for you. And for me, there's been a shift into a real curiosity about dying and what happens as we get closer and closer to that end portal. And it's interesting because there's a lot of similarities with the sexuality and the tantra and the expansion, and there's some big differences too in how the energy sort of like tapers off towards the end. So maybe the best thing to say about me as an introduction is that I'm a very, very curious person. Like, I'm fascinated by a lot of different things, a lot of different ways that we can show up in the world and be human and be in these bodies and explore connection with each other and with the world that we're in. And that's been kind of like the through line for my life, from beginning to end, is curiosity and fascination and a continual question of how can we feel and create and share more love and more depth with each other.
Hmm. Do you want to tell us more about both the similarities and the differences? Well, for me, it's easy to see differences, but I'm really curious about the similarities between
Mm.
death
Hmm.
process and the Tantra world.
I, there are a lot of ancient traditions that's, Eros and death are, there's a lot of similarities between them. And for me, it's not so much the like in the build up to orgasm, in the build up to the last moment of death, the final exhale, the process, the processes look very different.
Hmm.
But when you're going through that portal, they're very much the same. It's like we move into a space where the self disappears, where there's only like expansion, light, aliveness, weirdly enough, and union, communion and union. And so, what I've seen in my experiences with people who are on their deathbeds, and what I'm feeling in myself is my own body is decaying and dying, is it's a let go, it's a surrender. And the spiritual practice is how much can I let go and have each breath be a fulfillment in itself without an expectation that there needs to be more. It's resting in the unfathomable perfection of this moment. Other than that,
Yeah, I notice myself taking a deep breath. Yeah. Mm.
yeah, I would say with tantra and sexuality, it's more of like a build up of energy with each breath into more and more fire and intensity. And with the dying process, it's kind of reverse. It's with each exhale, it's letting go of one more thing, letting go of one more attachment, one more thought, one more memory. And so it's a ramping down and a ramping up. But then when you pass through the door, oh, I think it's the same.
Mm.
I think death is the ultimate orgasm.
Mm.
And
Mm.
orgasm, of course, is the little death.
Yeah, I've been having quite some that death near me in the past
Mm-hmm.
months, and I've been sharing multiple times that it's in one way so obvious how much closer it brings me to aliveness. Like
Mm-hmm.
even someone else dying, how much closer it brings me to every little thing that makes me feel alive and appreciation, but also really connection to everyone involved too.
That's
And so in it's very easy to also see the gift in it.
mhm.
And so I really appreciate how you put words to that.
No.
Uh,
So is there someone close to you who's in the dying process?
I have been close the past 2 years to a friend who was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he died
Mm-hmm.
a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. So it's very alive for you right now.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and my horse also died past weekend. Um,
Oh. Mm.
so, and actually, I mean, last summer my grandmother too, and I was very close the last days as well. So I definitely have a sense of what you're talking about, and it almost the way you talk about it, I wonder if you're looking forward to dying as well and how that is. And
Much, very
yeah.
much.
Mm.
It's I have to say it's almost a daily question for me of like, is it really worth staying in this world? Like, oh, I see door number two, and it's like, oh, that looks so exciting over there. I wonder what that's like. So that same curiosity is more about what's on the other side of that door.
Wow. That is such a opposite to always wanting to prolong your life and
Ah,
really like not like death is we don't want it, we don't want to look at it, we don't yeah.
yes, I am on a crusade against that. I feel like by being so death phobic as a culture, by always wanting it to happen somewhere else away from us, I think we miss one of the most incredible um, lessons. And for me, it's, similar like Tantra too. It's like the masks keep dropping away and things get more and more simple and more ah, physical, actually. It's sort of like, oh, the all that matters is this cough or this pain or this some the physicality of it comes forward to the front. And what it does for, as the masks drop and we become more more present with the physicality of what's occurring, whether it's sex or death, the opportunities for love and closeness expand. It's like there's less and less in the way. There's less and less to protect or defend or hide. That's what I mean, the surrendering into it. After a certain point in a sexual experience, and after a certain point in a dying experience, you actually realize I have no control. Like, I'm not in charge. Something is happening, and I could be with this something, or I can resist it, but I'm not in charge. I can't control what's happening.
Mm. When you're talking about those masks falling off, I'm also thinking about, those three beings that I talked about that I lost in the past year, how
Mhm.
every time something has been released in my life as well, like with my
Yes.
grandmother dying, something came up in the family that had been hidden or like pushed away for so long.
Mm.
With my friend dying, something really freed up concerning the relationships that we shared. With my horse, I also really feel like it's my youth
Oh, yeah.
that she represented. And so
Uh-huh.
even on the sidelines, as the one who's not really dying right now, um, the masks falling off. Yeah, again, you're speaking from the person that is dying, and I notice as the sideline person, I also experience all of these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty, the opportunity when we don't turn away from death,
Mm.
but we turn towards it. It's like we get to go on that ride too. And we get to I think the biggest thing, honestly, with death is uh, our sense of perspective and priority changes. Like what we thought was so important becomes absolutely irrelevant in those last moments for everybody in the room. It's like nothing matters but this love. Nothing matters but the fact that we have one more breath together.
Mm.
And then we don't. And then what do we do with that absence? Like, how do we grieve the loss? And how do we feel like when someone I love dies, it's like I can feel something magnetically like pulling on my heart. And so my heart expands in a new way to to keep reaching out and being in communion and connection with them. It's a beautiful expansion of the heart. And I think a lot of times people just focus on the breaking of the heart, like, oh, my heart is broken. Yes, and the shell around your heart is broken, but there's something that's now bigger.
Mm.
And there's a beautiful thing for me too with dying, with other people dying, is I feel a a blessing and an opportunity and an honor to carry them forward in the world, like whatever your grandmother was to you, like whatever she shared with you, it's like now yours to share in the world. It's like it can't come through her body anymore, but it can still come through you. And there's been for me such an opening of, oh, there's so many hundreds of people inside of me
Mm.
who I have loved, and now I'm carrying them. And all the ancestors and friends and family and horses and beloved pets and everything, it's like they're all still here. And I'm now responsible for being that in the world, being that grace or that outrageousness or that simplicity.
Whew. I didn't plan to talk about death with you. But
Hmm.
I'm really glad that we're bringing it in this conversation.
Hmm.
And I have this whole list of questions that I wanted to ask you.
And so we can gently segue into some of those things also. I don't think it's different.
No, exactly. I actually want to ask you some things, and they're maybe talking about sexuality, but I would love to keep the theme of death in all of them too, and hear how you're
Well,
bringing
that
that
sounds
together.
like fun. I
Yeah.
wonder how that would go.
Yeah. Um, and the first one is around slowness. For me, when I
Mhm.
think of David Cates, I think of slowness. And as you mentioned already, it's through the embodied intimacy training. Also, credits to Rachel and Booster that I've been
Mhm.
experiencing this slowness. And also, a big part in your belly to belly facilitation training. And I'm curious how this principle of slowing down has been in your life and your work, has been becoming such a big part of your approach.
Mm. Mm. Great question. Great question. Yeah, it really is one of the big themes in my life, one of the big learnings, and one of the most fruitful avenues of exploration. When I realized that slowing down opened up more worlds to me that I was speeding over before. It was like, oh, okay. It's, sort of like when you take a microscope and you see like, oh, there's so much more inside this drop of water than I ever imagined. It's kind of like when I slow down, when I land in my body, when I take a deep breath, when I stop and feel and notice what's here right now and what's going on. Um, there's more than enough that's available. And I felt, I still feel, but the original insight or exploration with sexuality was people were, myself included, were racing so fast to experience something that they missed it. It's almost like they were speeding down the highway and they missed the scenery.
Mm.
And they were trying to get somewhere and they didn't notice what was already here. And what's already here is what they were craving, and like where the nourishment and the richness and the connection happens. And it seems counterproductive to say, slow down, slow down, slow down. And what happens for me is that when I slow down, I actually become more open and more vulnerable. It's like every exquisite sensation is felt. Whereas before, I feel like a lot of the racing was to avoid being vulnerable, to avoid being revealed, to avoid feeling too much sensation, even. And so it's just that one step. Like my whole life was a science experiment, it was like, let's see what happens when we slow down, when we slow time down and drop into the present moment.
Mm.
And that has been an unending source of richness and learning for me.
Do you notice the same around death?
Absolutely. Yes. And it's been the people who are dying um, are slowing down. Like there's a there's a contraction of energy, um, a slowing down. Like they can't think about too much. They can't talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. It's narrows down to this moment. And in order to actually be with them, to meet them in the process that they're in, I have to slow down too. And I have to drop. all of my stories about what should be happening or what could be happening, or it's really moving into, I guess, more of a moving into hospice
Mm,
rather than moving into oh, let's try another medical treatment, that kind of the urgency of we have to stop the dying process by whatever means necessary, takes us out of connection and out of the moment.
mm,
And when I accept the dying process and embrace it like they are, then I can meet them in it. And those moments are so precious. They don't need to be a lot of moments. It's just, holding hands or taking a breath together or a sip of water or something becomes the whole world, the whole universe.
mm,
And it's magic to be able to share that with someone. Um, kind of like what you would share with a baby, an infant, before they start racing around and everything. It's like you have to be really in the present moment because that's where they are. They can't relate to anything beyond that.
mm,
That's a great guideline for sex too. Like, can we be in the present moment? Can we be here with what's actually here and really fully feel it together? And can I experience you in this present moment rather than experience some mask or projection of you or some like, oh, you're going to be my girlfriend now, or whatever the thing is, that keeps me on the surface
mm,
of it, keeps me hurtling forward rather than leaning back and dropping in.
mm. When I listen to you in this last example, I could imagine like sometimes it can be exciting or a
Mhm.
turn on to feel something coming up or like oh, we're gonna marry, like, like, it turns me on, or role play was also coming up.
Mhm.
Um, and I was just, I guess I want to like a clarifying question, like,
Mhm.
can that still be in all of that you're sharing now, or?
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm against any of that. I just feel like, um so if I use the example of death or dying, it's like 99% of the focus in our society is on how can we prevent this dying? How can we stop this disease? And I would like to dial it back to 50% and 50% of, and what might happen if we accept that this is here and we're going to slow down and be with it. So I feel that way with sex too. I feel like absolutely everything in the culture um, mirrors, reifies, encourages us to be speeding along in the projections, like having these intense sensations, all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, 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 you already know how to do that. That's what you've been doing every moment of your life. So please stop for just an experiment now and watch what happens when you breathe slowly and drop into the moment and forget about all that future stuff. So I feel like I'm trying to, or encouraging, rebalancing. Like I want to speak for the voice that's not heard or not honored in this society.
Recently, I read about a study on psychedelics, therapy with psychedelics.
Hmm.
And for me personally, it has been so clear that slowing down can bring a lot of healing. Things, when I start to feel safe in my body with other bodies, which is definitely an imprint I got from your training also. Wow, that's such a world of difference. And then there's so much space for
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And so for me, when I think of healing spaces, slowing down as part of that.
Hmm.
Um, but when I read the study, I was actually talking about the impact it has on depression or social anxieties. And there was written that the the stronger the fear was that they went through, the more intense the journey was,
Mm-hmm.
the more long term the impact was,
Okay.
positive impact was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a bit surprised, and I was also wondering, like, I'm never seeking for like breakthroughs or like pushing buttons to get somewhere somehow in my work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but when we look at healing, where is the place of slowness? Where is the place of intensity? How are they? What's
I
the
don't,
ratio?
yeah, yeah. I don't see slowness and intensity as opposites. I don't
Hmm.
see them as dualistic. I see um, inside slowness is more intensity. When I open up and soften and become more vulnerable and slow down and feel what's here, it is more intense.
Hmm.
It does go deeper. So, like with the psychedelic uh, therapy that you were talking about, and I'm a big fan of psychedelics, that's where a lot of my insights have come from. Um, I believe that when we face something, it does get more intense. And that's a different kind of intensity than the intensity of running away from something or avoiding something.
Hmm.
And that's the distinction I would make of the duality is the facing it or avoiding it,
Yeah.
not the slowness versus intensity.
Yeah. Yes, I'm almost hearing two different meanings of the word intensity here. Like,
Ah, sweet. Tell me more.
or like the intensity of running away is more like, I mean, there is a fastness in that, or like um, there's a lot of movement in that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And then there's this second intensity that can actually be in the stillness, even that there's
mm-hmm.
just a lot of feeling.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm using the right words. Yeah.
No, I'm feeling it. Yes.
Mm.
Yes. There's an urgency and a fire to running away. And I see it. Hmm. Let me see if I can describe this image. It's like if I'm running away, that kind of intensity is like if I'm literally running and my feet are barely touching the ground, and I imagine that each spot where my foot touches the ground is a sensation or a physical receptor of sensation. And so I'm getting like in 3 meters, I might touch the ground 5 times or something. So I'm getting 5 data points of sensation. Whereas if I'm walking slowly and take my heel, put my heel down, put my foot down, put my toes down, I can get 100 receptors. I'm become aware of 100 receptors, 100 data points in just one step. So for me, there's in the slowing down, it opens up more sensation, more feeling, more awareness sometimes than racing quickly and barely skimming over the surface of what's happening. And I
That's nice.
because I, so somatic and working with the body, sometimes I just think in images like that of like how many nerve receptors are in my little finger, and what would happen if I opened all 1,000 of them
Mm.
at once. And this came to me through psychedelics. It's like to slow down enough to notice like, whoa, there are 5 million universes in my little finger, and I'm curious about that. So there's what the amount of volume or intensity or vibration or information that's coming through um, can be just as much, if not more, when we slow down,
Mm.
is when we're feeling that urgency and intensity of speed.
Mm. When I asked you to be a guest on this podcast, I heard you say that you're excited to be interviewed as an elder.
Mhm.
And in that way, I also want to ask you now, like, how do you describe healthy sexuality? And
Mm.
also, second question, uh, where do you see us being as a society now in the
Mm.
area of intimacy, sexuality? Um,
Uh, those are two huge questions.
yeah. I just read the book of Esther Perel again,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
and she's really, she mm, showcasing the history of humankind and how that has been changing relationships and the
Yes.
focus and needs of relationships. And so I got really curious, what would David Cates say about that?
Mm. So we'll start with how is it changing? Um, I have to say I do feel like it's changing, and I'm a bit disappointed and maybe cynical about the ways that I see it changing now. Speaking as an elder, like I came of age in uh, the late 60s and the 70s, and there definitely was what I could only call like a blossoming or a flowering of a sexual revolution. And we went from sex was shameful and you shouldn't do it, or you could only do it in marriage, into everybody has the right to be sexual in any way that they want. And yay, explore, and let's bring more things in, more possibilities in. And there was an explosion of possibilities. And now that expansion, I feel it contracting.
Mm.
And I feel like there's still some in the world of people who are exploring expansion. You, for example, your world, the embodied intimacy world, some of the tantra world, but I feel that shrinking. I feel the influence of that shrinking. And how I don't know if this is another thing showing my age. So I'm friends with Margot Anand, who was a huge Tantra author and deliverer, worked for Osho. And she, at one point, she was publishing all these Tantra books and being driven around in limousines to book signings. And she was a star, like really, and sold hundreds of thousands of copies of everything. And oh, like this was the revolution is happening, and everybody's learning all these new, wonderful ways to be sexual and to be aware of sexuality. And I spoke with her, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now, and it's in a very different world. And she wrote another book, and like nobody even wants to publish it. And she says they want me to self-publish it. And she says I look around and I think my whole career, everything I've done, what was it for? Like I thought it would keep growing and expanding, and there would be more love and more joy and pleasure in the world. And it feels like that's shrinking again. And I can see that. I feel that with her. I feel the difference of it's almost like it's going more underground, and the politics of scarcity and fear and right-wing suppression and we don't have enough is beginning to that those storm clouds are beginning to spread. And so that's what I see over the course of my life, is that it went from conservative contraction to expansion and blossoming, and now it's coming back into a kind of contraction again. And it's a pulse, it's a rhythm, an inhale and an exhale. So I try to keep that perspective too. It's like, okay, that's going underground now. I'm not sure. I still support it where it lives and where the rivers flow underground. And I'm sad that it's not nourishing a new culture in the ways that it felt like it once might.
So from there, in your dream, in your wildest dream, like how is a healthy sexuality expressed in society?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of my bias or part of the way that life conditioned me because I went through that expansion of a sexual revolution is I would say my first statement would be all sexuality is healthy. Like any expression is better than not expressing. And we can only work with what's up and out on the table. We can't work with what's hidden underneath. So there are things that I think now we have enough um, information about. I think about porn, for example, and the ways in which porn sort of opened the floodgates for possibilities like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Oh, and there's people like me who want to have that too. That kind of uh, expansive healthiness, I think, feels like it's now becoming uh, a crutch of a virtual alternative to real life human beings. And it's getting darker in a lot of ways with violence in the porn sphere. And it's like it had some good points, and now the bad points are coming in stronger. And I worked with men my whole life. That's been a one through line, and the impact of um, easily available pornography online has decimated a lot of men. It's tweaked their expectations about what sex should be or could be. It's completely given them body dysmorphia about like what a sexy man looks like and how he fucks and all that. And it's given a completely distorted view of what women want and how women show up and what is women's sexuality. So many of these men who went through puberty learning about sex from online porn um, have a really hard time functioning in the real world with real people. They have a hard time being a real person and being genuine with what their sexuality is. They're really lost in performing what they think they should be and being disgusted and disappointed that the women aren't performing what they're supposed to be. And that's, it's, in my calculus or my measurement of the impact of tantra festivals and tantra books versus like Pornhub and whatever huge percentage of the internet is driven by porn. It's like, oh, that's kind of like that's a tsunami, that's a flood, and we have a few little streams over here of what could be a different, more relational, more alive, more honest form of sexuality that includes real human beings and vulnerability and learning together, being in an experience together, not just as actors, but as co-discoverers of new worlds with each other.
And to remember that it is performance. It's a scene. It's so it can have its place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Yes.
It's not meant to
It
be
can be the whole
education.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like porn was good and then porn was bad. It's like there were more advantages to porn in the beginning, and now there are fewer advantages and more downsides.
Yeah. Well, I am very much busy with those streams that you talked about.
Mhm.
And actually, I feel a lot more optimistic because
Great.
I feel
Me
like the
too.
streams are just, they're growing and they're growing and they're growing. So I'm gonna stay in that perspective.
Okay, great.
Um, but I am curious about like how earlier in society there were like more embedded rituals um and community practices that are now not so much present anymore.
What do you mean by earlier in society? Like
Or
50 years ago or 5,000 years ago?
like hundreds of years ago.
Okay, okay.
Um, you know, I wasn't there, but 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 I think, I guess I'm speaking into the, being more and more able to live really as an individual, separate from others in the world we have now. It's easy
Hmm.
to just live in your apartment, have everything virtual, and not really be in contact with other beings. And
Yeah.
from what I understand, earlier that wasn't really possible in the same way.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so from that place, I've been curious about like, are all the workshops and the rituals and the trainings and the sacred spaces and the healing spaces and all of these, is that actually speaking into also a longing to have that back? And then how, I guess it can also be a pitfall for people to feel dependent on going to workshops over and over again and not really knowing how to integrate that in their daily life. Like, how can we have that sense of community and ritual and healing space in daily life? And so I was wondering if you want to speak into that a little bit, share your perspective.
Sure. Um, yeah, I think it's huge. And I think we're we're in a very rare moment in human history right now where we have the resources and the desire to individuate and live in separate little cells. Even like the nuclear family or your own apartment as a single person or all those different things. I'm looking out the window right now and I see all these 5-story apartment buildings and everybody's living alone. Um, and if we look back, we don't even have to look back very far to see architecturally the kinds of spaces that people lived in did not allow privacy. You were eating together, cooking together, sleeping together, shitting together, fucking together. There were no walls. It was all in one big room, if there was a room even.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think there's a deep longing inside of us. This is part of, where what came through with belly to belly is um, we're all large mammals and we're social mammals, and our bodies are designed to be together. Our bodies are designed to pile up on each other, touch each other, like all the cows sleeping together in the barn, kind of a thing. And I think on a cellular level, on a muscle memory level, on a neurobiological level, we miss that. And there's a certain kind of um, aloneness that again has its moments of yay, I'm finally breaking away from the restrictions of the family and the tribe. But then we break too far away and we're like, oh, I'm out here all alone and nobody understands me and nobody loves me and nobody wants to fuck like I want to fuck and like all these things. And so it's a real challenge. And I believe I would, I don't know, what I know of history, I would say pre-Christian. If we go to the pre-Christian era, most of the um, remnants of the culture and societies that we have suggest, if nothing else, a very different relationship with bodies and nudity and people getting together and drinking and carousing and like having orgies and celebrations and fertility and all that stuff was a very seemed to be a very honored and normalized part of life that got lost somewhere in the Christian morality universe. And so, yes, I think it used to exist, that there was a lot more, you could say ritual. I think some of it was like intentional, repetitive forms of this is what we do, and we do this dance and we sing together, and then people make love in these kinds of ways, that kind of ritual. And on the spectrum to the other extreme of just like, if you live on a farm and you watch the animals just all live together, eat together, and then when it's spring, they fuck together, and then the babies are born and life goes on. And there's just a kind of naturalness and normalcy of we're in bodies together and there's nothing shameful, nothing we need to hide, nothing we need to negotiate or work out or like, what are you into? Or like all this kind of stuff. There's a normal naturalness that has been lost
Mm.
in both Christianity and capitalistic culture, individuated culture, Western culture. And I feel there's a deep longing for that. Um, one of the Somebody recently asked me about my work and my life or something, and I said, all my life, all I've really done is I just tell people to do what they really wanted to do anyway. And they didn't have enough courage or nerve or permission to do it on their own. But then there's a group of people, and it's like, oh, well, David says we should do this. And David's taking the responsibility for it. So it's okay. I can do it. And then there's a permission field, and all of this emerges, all of it bubbles up from underneath, not because I was imposing some vision on it of what people should do, but just like letting people be people, letting bodies be bodies, letting hearts be hearts, like holding a big enough space for all of that to flow and find its expression, find its due expression in the 21st century of eons old desires that live in bodies.
Mm. Beautiful. I could really listen hours. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the beautiful advantages of age and eldership, honestly, is I love that I have such an expansive perspective
Mhm.
on all of these things. And that like really grounds me and helps me be peaceful about the coming and going of all the waves and the yeses and nos and favorable and not favorable and all that. And I really enjoy that. That's one of the advantages of living in a dying body that doesn't have the fiery energy to fuck all night long anymore. And I really appreciate that there are younger people like you who are curious about, tell me stories of the history. Tell me, like, what have you seen over your travels and around the world and over decades? What's changed? What's what's real, what's important, what are we missing? Like those kinds of things are really beautiful to bring into awareness, to bring into the virtual podcast world or a conversation or whatever. And I wish that I thank you for creating this opportunity. And I wish there were more elders who actually have something useful to say about all this, and more young people who would be curious about it. I feel like we're all just antiquated, out of touch turtles who does like what I did when I was 20 doesn't matter anymore because the world is different. And I know the world is different. And humans are still humans and bodies are still bodies.
I think this is really important what you say, because when I had the last talk with my grandmother before she died, and she couldn't, I don't know if she heard me. I'm guessing she did,
Uh-huh.
but there was no sign that she did. But one of the things was that, I've been asking her or trying to ask her so many times things about her life and how she looked at life and how it was for her to be a woman and like all of these things. And I never really got satisfying
Mm.
answers. I never really got to hear her story and her insights and about her life. And I think it's also partly, it was easy to hear, well, that doesn't matter anymore. Also, I don't matter anymore because now everything is different. And so diminishing the value also of her.
Yes, yes, very much. Yeah, I know a lot of older people who feel that way.
Yeah,
Like they're not important anymore. They're not useful anymore. And I know how to work a rotary telephone, but who cares?
yeah,
They don't
exactly.
exist.
Yeah. So thank you so much speaking into all of these wonderful subjects.
Mm, thank you for asking.
And if
Yes.
people want to hear more about you, and I'm sure you've been talking and spreading your message over those many years already in different ways, like are there some resources or places they can find out more about you?
Thank you for asking that question. And the answer is no. I have really backed away from all that. I don't have a website. I'm on Facebook, which already is becoming antiquated. And I'm semi-retired, fully retired, whatever. I do stuff. I'm one of the underground streams now,
Okay.
honestly. And I don't have a public platform or persona. I haven't written any books. It's just, this is it.
Yeah.
You want a taste of David, you have to come to Laura's podcast.
You have a problem when it goes viral.
No, I don't. Nobody can find me. You have a
It's
problem.
true. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for living the life that you live and having the courage that you have and feeding the streams that you're feeding. I think it's really important in the world.